We are now officially halfway through 2026, which means it's time to stop and rank the top 10 movies of the year so far. I think it's been a pretty good year for movies. It's only going to get better as we go forward, but without further ado, let's get straight into it. Before number 10, I want to fly through just a few honorable mentions really quickly. Backrooms was a very unnerving and phenomenal adaptation of the internet series. Kane Parsons has as bright of a future as any young director in Hollywood right now. Ready or Not 2: Here I Come was a pleasantly surprising sequel to a movie that I thought was okay, but it expanded on the lore in a way that I didn't think I would care about at all, but I actually did. Sam Raimi's Send Help was a really fun and twisted time. Boots Riley's I Love Boosters made me feel like I was on drugs. And then I actually liked Wuthering Heights quite a bit, which I know is fairly unpopular, but I found it to be engaging and very visually appealing. But with those honorable mentions out of the way, we can hop straight into the top 10, and coming in that number 10 spot is Michael. I know that among critics, this movie is not very highly regarded, and I really do understand that, and for me, the first half of the movie wasn't working at all. It felt like an adaptation of the early life section of Michael Jackson's Wikipedia page. Like Michael gets a monkey, then he gets nose surgery, then he does this and that. There wasn't much depth to it at all, but then the second half turned into what was essentially a concert film that was just feeding the audience legendary hit after legendary hit. And even though it's not the identity that I was expecting for a biopic about a controversial public figure, it's still an identity, and that's more than I can say about the first half. I love how this movie is shot and directed by Antoine Fuqua, and Jafar Jackson and Coleman Domingo both dominate the screen. I hope part 2 is able to dive into some more nuance and detail, because that is certainly an area where part 1 was lacking, but I'm not as upset about it as some people seem to be. Number 9 is GOAT. I think this movie is Sony Animation continuing to prove year after year that they can hang quality-wise with the Pixars of the world. This year it's GOAT, last year it was K-Pop Demon Hunters, the past few years it's been the Spider-Verse movies and Mitchell's vs. the Machines, which I loved. Their track record is getting really impressive at this point. But as for GOAT, I'm a huge basketball guy, so I was always going to like this movie, but I think it actually found a way to be creative with a premise that seemed kind of dull on paper. I love the visual style the movie has. It's the same thing that Sony has been doing for the last couple years of making every frame look like some kind of beautiful watercolor painting, and then I think the voice cast absolutely knocked it out of the park. Just a very well-rounded movie that was everything I wanted it to be. At number 8, I have the drama. Very rarely do I see a movie that goes places that I've never seen before, but this movie's concept and the questions it asks the audience of what would you do in this specific situation made me think more than any movie I've seen this year. I think that conflict is navigated beautifully in the story itself. It makes you feel like there's really no correct decision to be made by any of the characters, and that dichotomy is portrayed really well in the performances by Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. The movie is actually really funny, which I found to be surprising given its subject matter, but it's a really impressive balancing of tones that I found to be a very thought-provoking and fun watch. Except for Rachel. This girl, yeah, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I did not enjoy her at all. At number 7, I've got Pixar's Hoppers. If you've seen my Pixar ranking, you know my thoughts on this movie. It is a wonderfully creative and chaotic and heartfelt emotional film that never really slows down and keeps you invested and on your toes the entire time. It takes the story to places I never would have expected it to go. Like I said before, there's a moment in this movie where a shark is flying through the air trying to crush a car being partially navigated by a beaver. There's a moment where something I won't spoil happens to a butterfly voiced by Meryl Streep. It's just the kind of movie where I sit there in the theater and think to myself, what the heck am I watching? But in the best way possible. Number 6 is probably where I'll ruffle some feathers, but I have Project Hail Mary. I know that a lot of people have this as their clear-cut number 1, and I understand that. I also think it's a really good movie, but I guess I'll get my negatives out of the way really quickly since I know that's probably the part you want to hear most. I mainly think there's no reason for it to be 2.5 hours, and I think even if the two main characters are extremely well written, like Grace and Rocky are, the dynamic can only go on between them for so long before I get tired of it. I also thought the continuous fake-out deaths for both of them got kinda redundant, but that's it, alright? Those are all the negatives I've got. As for the positives, which I'm much more excited to talk about, this is an absolutely beautiful movie with a very strong emotional core to it that goes beyond the limits of your typical space adventure, save the world type film. Ryan Gosling is as good here as he is in just about anything, but he still manages to get outdone in my opinion by Sandra Hüller's powerhouse performance. Her karaoke scene is easily in my top 5 favorite scenes of the year, maybe even top 3, but that's a ranking for another time. Greg Fraser is probably the consensus best cinematographer working today, and he continues to prove that with everything he does. This movie really looks stunning, and I'm glad to have been able to watch this in the theater. Just a phenomenal movie all around that I can't praise enough. Moving into the top 5, I have easily the biggest surprise of the year so far. It's Sheep Detectives. I saw the trailer for this movie one time, less than a week before it was supposed to come out, and if you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. I thought this looked like the most childish and immature movie I'd seen advertised in a really long time. And it's not like that's a problem. Those movies exist for a different audience, but I just figured this wasn't going to be for me in the slightest. However, after hearing some oddly positive reviews early on, I decided to check it out, and oh boy am I glad I did. This is just a disgustingly well-written story to be about a bunch of sheep. There's a murder mystery at the heart of this thing that feels way higher in nuance and maturity than the characters they decided to use to tell it, but at the same time, that's part of why it works so well. I think the star-studded cast is a huge factor in its success. Hugh Jackman is wonderful in the screen time he's given, Molly Gordon is great, Nicholas Braun is great, and not to mention the lineup of voice talent for the actual sheep, including but not limited to Bryan Cranston, Patrick Stewart, Rhys Darby, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and so many more, and I think they're part of the reason that the sheep are the primary aspect that steal the show for me. Not only does the CGI look phenomenal on them, but there's so much emotion weaved into each of their dynamics with each other and with the shepherd, Hugh Jackman. And then the way that they are incorporated into the mystery itself is just creative enough for me to not feel like it's stupid. I don't know, it's just such a weird movie to say is one of my favorites of the year so far, but I will stand behind it. At number 4, I've got what's been the talk of the town recently, Toy Story 5. No, it wasn't necessary. Yes, it does slightly take away from some of the great character endings we've gotten in the past, but at some point, I just have to look at the movie in front of me and say, this is a really good film. Focusing on Jessie is a great decision that allows her character to be fleshed out in a way she hadn't been so far in the franchise, and she really stole the show because of it. The whole toys versus tech concept is genius, and the way it's executed lived up to every expectation I could have had. I do feel like the way they decided to bring Woody back did end up feeling very forced and contrived, and I feel like his dynamic with Buzz in the movie is kind of random, but towards the end, we finally get to see the whole group together fighting for a common goal, and when that happens, I can't help but be entertained. There's probably going to be Toy Story 6 at this point, but I'm done trying to act like I'm upset about it. If the movies are going to keep being this good and this innovative, keep them coming. At number 3 is the movie that I think we're going to look back at 2026 and say was the most important movie of the year, and that's Obsession. I could talk all day about the rise of YouTube filmmakers and how there's a reason their movies are so good and the lessons Hollywood needs to learn from them, but that's a video for another time. Right now, I just want to focus on the movie. And I guess my first point about it is just 2 words, Inde Navarrette. I don't think I need to say much more than that, but I will. Her performance takes an already great movie and elevates it to a height that most horror films don't dream of. She's so eerie in the way she looks at you, the way she moves, the way she just carries herself. It's all so unsettling, and one of the biggest contributors to her performance feeling so scary is Curry Barker's direction. This movie has an atmosphere to it that's so immersive and captivating, as well as suffocating if I'm being honest, and Curry Barker knows exactly when to capitalize on those emotions you feel while watching. The story he came up with here is so creative and it's told so beautifully. I'd compare it to quicksand. You start the movie feeling stable, and then without even realizing it, you just sink and devolve into absolute insanity, but it all feels justified within the story. That's the best part. We go from this small-scale guy who has a crush on a girl story to the most bonkers third act, and it all works together. I am ecstatic to see where Curry Barker's career goes from here. I know he's got a new movie coming out next year that I'm already excited for, but in the future, he and Kane Parsons could be the hottest names in the industry for years to come, and they both came from YouTube. Who could have imagined that? Coming in at number 2, just missing out on the number 1 spot, is 28 years later, The Bone Temple. This was the first movie I saw this year, and it just held its spot at number 1 until very recently. January movie releases, especially in the horror genre, have a reputation for being just absolutely terrible, and that, paired with the fact that I didn't even really care for the first 28 Years Later movie, made me feel like this was just going to be a mediocre experience, but I was dead wrong. DaCosta takes over the directing duties from Danny Boyle, and with all due respect to Danny Boyle, she completely outshines him. The level of sauce she brings to this movie, especially compared to the first, is not something I expected at all. Pretty much every performance here is great, but Ralph Fiennes in particular is what I'd call Oscar-worthy, and that's not a compliment I like to just throw around very much. We spend extended portions of this movie just alone with him, and the fact that his performance is enough to carry those moments without them ever feeling dull or lifeless is insanely impressive. Another acting job I thought was brilliant was from Jack O'Connell. He is so disturbing and sadistic in this movie, and some of the things he does, man, they're hard to watch. But perhaps my favorite aspect of the film are its needle drops. Things like Duran Duran and Radiohead, they work so well in this universe and this story in particular. It's a real shame that not many people watch this movie because based on the ending, I thought we were in for an all-timer with the third installment, but now I feel like that probably won't be happening. But I will do my part and declare my love for this film for as long as it takes in hopes of getting to see this trilogy completed. But coming in at number 1 for me is Disclosure Day. I get that a lot of people have problems with this, but I just didn't. I think this was Steven Spielberg proving that he still got it. I know there are some logic issues and character decisions that left me scratching my head, but I can't deny the emotions I felt during this, especially at that ending. It's been a very long time since a movie has made me feel the way that Disclosure Day did in its final 20 minutes or so. It felt like the culmination of Spielberg's entire Alien filmography, and it genuinely shook me to my core. Aside from the third act though, I think the rest is just a phenomenal and well-told story. It's not the Alien movie I was expecting, it's more of a political thriller mixed with huge action set pieces mixed with a really emotional heart to it that was all right up my alley. Josh O'Connor delivers a good performance, but it's Emily Blunt that does more for me. I'd probably still take her role in Oppenheimer as her best work ever, but this is a clear-cut second place for me. She taps into a range of emotions here that's captivating to witness, and I sincerely hope she gets the recognition I believe she deserves for this come award season. But as weird as it sounds, she's not even the best performance in the film. That belongs to Courtney Grace, who has maybe 5 minutes of screen time, probably less, but what she does with it is some of the more powerful stuff I've seen in a long time. Overall, this is one of the best directors of all time telling a riveting story that he's clearly passionate about, and even though there are some clear flaws, I still think the sheer heights that it reaches are enough to catapult it to the top spot, making it, at least at the halfway point, my favorite film of 2026 so far. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Make sure to leave a comment down below telling me your favorite movies of the year, anything you're glad I mentioned, anything you're upset I didn't mention. I know there are a lot of different opinions on this and I genuinely want to hear them all. If you want to help out the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. We're trying to hit 500 subs as soon as possible, but with that being said, thanks again so much for watching and God bless.